Hello, Tom Lavecchia here with the latest edition of the New Theory podcast. So we're on a roll. We had some great guests yesterday with Ian Smith, the Attilas gym owner in New Jersey. A little controversy there, spending $15,000 a day, but he's willing to die on the hill for civil liberties. We had Jeremy Ryan Slade on, who talked about why start a podcast, and many, many more. So we're really heating up. This guest is no exception in terms of greatness. His name is Lee Burns. He literally launched his book today and it already became a bestseller, which is pretty sweet, on Amazon. How to Talk to Someone and Not Die, a handbook for superheroes. And in the hello, Giuseppe. We have a little bit of a say hello to the crowd.
Hi.
So Giuseppe, here's what we're going to talk about today, okay? And this is actually important. It's actually probably relevant to what we're doing, Lee. Is prior to the social media day, you would have dinner with people, you would interact, etc. Now, like in the social media world, we're kind of stuck to our phone. So without further ado, Lee Burns, welcome to the New Theory podcast.
Thanks, brother. It's good to be here. And I'm glad your son was jumping in there with us. That's awesome.
And it's apropos because I struggle with this. I've gotten better, but because of the hard knocks, which we'll get into. But what I gather, and you're going to go into depth, hopefully, right, is we're losing our society. The not in a creepy, weird way, but the talk to just somebody, have a conversation, strike something up. That's like that art is gone. So before we get into that, give us your background, your formative years, and what kind of made you.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I've lived what I like to say an adventurous life. Okay. I have seen life from a lot of different angles, and that includes growing up in a very, very tight religious group that kind of forced us to withdraw from living in life, really, other than the community. But the community was really strong, and there was a lot of beautiful people. Yeah. But when I got out of that, I kind of ran for the hills, and I ended up in drugs and ended up with a pretty dark side for a while.
Interesting.
But from there, I became a firefighter. I started to find myself. I searched spiritually. I was in the entertainment business for some time, started as a model, then an actor, and just fell in love with acting. And I tell you that my whole life has formed me into who I am now. But the acting was really pivotal, because it's such an incredible job where you get the opportunity to study life from another view, where you get to look at things from how does this, in acting, all acting teachers will tell you, no character ever does anything wrong given their view of the world, right? Correct. So you have to learn to look at it from that way. You can't judge your character if you're going to be them. Correct. And I got an opportunity to teach for a while acting. So and work with really top end, huge celebrities and Oscar winners and all this kind of stuff. So just then started traveling and delivering seminars, and I'm skipping over a whole bunch of stuff, but it's like, I've just got to have a real good experience of life to me. Yeah. And I would say it's hard for me to pick what formed me. I just felt like when I got into acting, all of the dark past that I wanted to get rid of, I didn't want to get rid of it anymore. Yeah. And not because I could draw on it, because I understood people better. And then as I started writing and I started speaking and getting in touch with audiences and being able to touch their life in a way that really meant something to me and meant something to them, I was grateful for that, because I'm the last one that has a right to judge. Yeah.
I know how that is. So this is important, but I don't want to gloss over the super important stuff. So grew up in a religious, situation and background. Yeah. And then with the antithesis of, probably super constrained, and then antithesis where you got into maybe the wrong crowd and drugs and stuff that goes along with that. Let's first go to the first part of it. What was beginning of the end when you kind of knew you were maybe going to go a bad way from religion, or a bad way, or a different way? I don't say a bad way, but a different way from there.
Honestly, man, it was around 17 years old, I think. We went to church about 4 times a week.
Were you Mormon, or what was the background?
No, it's Pentecostal.
Okay, so that's Christian, correct?
Yes.
Like super Christian.
Like, you got it, brother. Like, you're not supposed to go to public schools. You're not supposed to go to the movies. You're not supposed to.
Wow.
Like, it's a whole lot of like pull you back into this community. At the time, I just wanted to be a normal kid.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be able to interact with people and not feel so different.
Yeah.
And I think that was sort of the beginning of the end for me, honestly, was I put a razor blade to my wrist.
Right.
And my parents backed off, and I started in another direction at that point. They stopped making me go to the church. And by the time I was 19, though, my mom told me I needed to, rightfully so, told me that I needed to move out of the house because I was on drugs.
Wow. Do you have kids, Lee, if you don't mind me asking?
I do. No, it's fine, brother. I got 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of my biggest fears as a parent is having a child that's going to harm themselves. And then kind of what you're talking about in your book is maybe not being present or not picking up on the signs. In retrospect, as a parent, in retrospect, as a full-grown adult, your parents probably are good parents, good people. They meant well,
Amazing.
right? Yeah, meant
Absolutely.
well.
Absolutely.
Could that have been prevented? Was that your course? I want to learn.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Because it scares me.
Yeah. Look, man, I would say that each individual is responsible for their own life.
Yeah.
And that's 100% my view.
Sure.
Now, my parents, I have an incredible relationship with both of them. They have both apologized a lot for different things in the upbringing. And I've got incredible relationships with my children as well.
That's awesome.
And I have told, like my mother and my father both have said to me, you've done such a great job of raising your kids. I wish that I had done this, or I wish I had done that. Yeah. And I tell them, listen, you did the best you could with the tools that you had, right? What's up, brother? You did the best you could with the tools you had. Luckily, society moves forward, right? More information is available to us now. I had, and my wife had, more tools available to us to be able to understand what is going on with our kids and help our kids. Yeah. They were using the tools that they had. Those tools were not the best tools.
Well, I sorry about that. I want to be a great dad too, but I got a podcast here. I love my son to death. He's looking for headphones, but
it's cool.
We're gonna play through as what Dave Portnoy says. We're gonna play it through. So they're not here, buddy. Sorry, they're not here. So
see, I love he's doing this though, man. Yeah. That's why I talk about kids in the book.
Yeah.
And kids are so in communication with everything. They're so present. They're so there. Yep. If we don't screw them up as a society, we might be all right.
Well, that's so. Like I said, what one concern is obviously for kids, you don't want them to hurt themselves. It's a huge fear. But the other thing is you don't want to screw it up as a parent. Like you have one shot at this, and I think as a kid you take you kind of blame it on your parents, and then as a parent you blame it on yourself. It's hard to not shift the blame. But so you brought a good point, and it's similar. So I grew up with immigrant parents or immigrant mother, single mother household. And, as an adult, I reflect back and I kind of say, you know what, like she was born in Italy in the 30s, and then had the wars and all other crap. And I realized she did a great job as a parent, but I realized what the hell what was her frame of reference
right
as a parent? So you kind of touched on that with your parents where they were almost like, listen, I'm sorry, or however they communicated, but that's all we knew, and they meant well. That's right. That was their playbook. Right.
That's
so
right.
Now you're kind of coming up with came up with the superhero handbook. And full disclosure, guys, we're working with Lee on the agency side and I'm voluntarily having him on because I love him already. But more importantly, I wanted to have him on because, I haven't always been the most present for my children and in my relationships. And I thought it was too important. I would always be on the phone. I always, wouldn't be present. And then on top of that, by not being present, like, let alone like talk to family, definitely not talk to strangers, you know, and have that dialogue and learn. And it's kind of funny. I'm not always the one to chat with the Uber drivers and go get their life story. And like, I almost like put like every like driver on a podcast that we drive with. My point being is this book is super important, right?
Thanks, man.
Which Lee wrote this book? I think there's a few different Lees. Which Lee wrote this book? I'm not you're you, but there's different.
No, it's well
Lees,
spotted,
you know?
dude. It's well
So I want to
spotted.
know which Lee wrote this book. You know.
You know what, man? The Lee that I do my best to be all the time is who wrote the book. I would say that I aspire and work diligently to operate from what I have put into the book. I've gone through so many changes over the last, really the last 10, 15 years. And especially in the last 7 years with the traveling and getting to speak to audiences. And I just developed this true love for humanity, honestly, man. What I find consistently is we live through so much pressure. There are so many things coming at us all the time that we don't stop often enough to give ourselves a break.
Correct.
And say, you know what? I'm doing all right. Doing all right. I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm trying to do better all the time. Right? So it's who wrote the book? It's the Lee that cares. I sat down, I wrote this book. Actually, I've had the idea for it for only about only less than a year. And I started writing it. I had written the first maybe 3 chapters whenever COVID hit.
Yeah.
And we went into the lockdown, and about 2 months into that is when I sat down and just pounded out the rest of it, because I said, what's happening right now that scares me the most in terms of our future is that we're being told to be scared of each other.
Yeah.
We're being taught to pull away from each other. And if we do that as humanity, we got problems, man. But if we don't do that, if we do the opposite of that, we can pull through anything.
So I want to get to the crust of it, and what makes obviously the pandemic categorically different is, respectfully, after 9/11, we had a unifying enemy, if you will, or hey, we need to tackle this. The war on drugs. Hey, let's go. There's always like some kind of enemy, right? And then on top of it, in this particular case, we have an invisible enemy. I'm not going to get into the political side, but we have an invisible enemy, right?
Yeah.
And what do you do when you have an enemy? Community, get together, have a mantra, have a message, be there to support each other. This is the antithesis and the opposite. Don't have community. Don't talk to each other. Don't go over somebody's house. Be away from the people who need you the most, which are the elderly and sick. So it's like, holy shit, like we are going towards a situation where it's the opposite of what we need right now. So, the cool thing is, at least with your book, you can read it, you can digest it. And when things normalize a little bit, can adhere to those kind of your mantra. But first, let's talk about the true core tenet of the book, and then how is it going to kind of weave into kind of our new society? Because this shit ain't going away.
Well, oh man. So I didn't accidentally call it a handbook for superheroes.
Yeah.
This is what I have learned in I think my own struggles and overcoming the things that I've overcome, but then that has just been really driven home that we all have that within us.
Yeah.
That we're all capable of these things.
Yeah.
As I've gotten into the seminar circuit, right?
Yeah.
And so many beautiful stories that just start running through my mind of what people have overcome and how we found ways to band together. I mean, how much has Zoom blown up? How much I just finished a 7-week series of delivery to Russia.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right. And it's, they're like 1,000 views on each one of these things once they've got it recorded or more once it's passed out.
Yeah.
And could I have accomplished that prior to this? What I'm saying is there's always another avenue. We're going to find a way to communicate with each other. And there is another opportunity. But you asked me about the core of it. So the core of it to me is communication is part of who we are, man.
No.
It's a deep, deep, deep part of who we are. It is something that we need to look, if we're not able to for a year or two, whatever it is, physically go out and be touching each other, walking up, hugging.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing it. I'm just telling you, I'm going to be doing it. I see one of my, somebody I love, I'm just hugging them. But even if we're not able to, it doesn't stop what's in the book.
Yeah.
What's in there is first getting your attention off of what we can't do, right? It's first getting back to what is right, what is good. We are being pounded continually with everything that is wrong, with everything that we can't do, with everything that we're supposed to be afraid of, with everyone that we're supposed to hate, right? Yeah. So the first step is let's just get away from that for a minute.
Yeah.
Let's just go out and find some things that are actually good about life. Let's just spend a minute doing that, and then from there, we start to build on those blocks. And frankly, if someone's really going to do these exercises in this book, which I highly encourage them to do, they're looking at a number of weeks.
Yeah.
To really, if you want to get this superhero power revved back up again, of being able to just notice something in a stranger and even give them a kind word about it, right? That can be done. We're passing each other all the time. Getting back up to feeling confident about yourself, good about yourself, admiring what's right about you enough that one of the examples I'll use in the book is, look, if I come up to you on the street, Tom, and I say, hey man, give me some money. Like I need some money. I ain't got no money. Yeah. Even if let's say I'm trying to get $100 out of you and you don't have $100. It doesn't matter how much you want to give me that $100. You can't do it, right?
Yeah.
You need to have loads of money in your pocket to where $100 doesn't mean anything to you. You can just give it away without even thinking about it. But it might mean something huge to me in my life.
Correct.
All right, well, let's turn that into what if I just need somebody to see something right about me? I just need somebody to recognize that I'm worth something, right? If you're walking around with no self-worth yourself, how are you going to give me any self-worth? Right? How are you going to see that in me, acknowledge me? So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go back to repairing ourselves.
Yeah.
And that is done by looking at what we are getting right. Because I promise you, it is so much more than you are being told on a daily basis.
Yeah. And that's driving an important point home. What are some of the superpowers, those newly minted superheroes after we read the book? What are some of the powers we would develop and master?
Well, I don't want to give away too much. Let me say it this way. I don't want to give away too much. How
about maybe give an example, because you wrote the book, right?
Yeah.
Maybe give an example in the past, an actual example of something that happened to you. And rather than self-pity, you took charge and used one of the superpowers that you developed, because you developed it before you wrote about it. And, how did you handle it? And what was the result of the situation?
I got one for you. So, it was in a business situation. I'm not going to use names here, but it was a new business relationship, and there was it was a big deal for one of the companies. Yeah. And it was one of the executives in the company at the time. I helped launch the company, set it up, and have since stepped back as just an advisor to the board.
Okay.
But it was a critical point for the company in moving forward. And there was a point at which a key individual, we were partnering with someone else, and a key individual, top person that attacked me.
Hey.
And instead of firing back, I tried to look at it from their view. I stepped back. I didn't just like, oh, let me be all beat up and all that stuff. Yeah. But I just went, okay, well, what is it that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah.
What is it that you were trying to get done here? What is it that you want to be the outcome of this? And all of this, then this person opened up and just started, well, this and this, and I said, okay, well, you know what? We can make that happen. You know, this was their particular area. So we're going to work to make sure that it's how you want it to be. And then I made sure my team and we went about making sure this was happening during the week. And here's what's really interesting. During that week, I found out some things about this individual and the amount of pressure that they were under at the time, personal things that were hitting them in their life that had nothing to do with me. Because 99% of the time when somebody does do that and does lash out at you, it doesn't have anything to do with you, man.
Yeah.
It's not personal. It's the stuff that's going on in their life, right? And by the end of the week, and I never asked for it, all right? I never asked for it. But by the end of the week, the lady called me up and apologized to me.
Wow.
And the people around were shocked because she wasn't known for doing things like that.
Interesting.
But it formed a relationship that really helped to launch the whole thing because I was willing to be there and listen, be there and experience what was coming at me and try to understand, find something to admire. This person is incredibly successful. This person has built a very large, successful business and helps a lot of people learn how to succeed, right? Yeah. I admired that about them.
Yeah.
So it launched a whole new thing for us because I handled it that way.
I love it. And what are, and again, without giving too much, but what are some tips, actual tips that we can take away from on how to better communicate and how to be more present in this new normal with our family, close friends?
Well, all right. So how about this, Tom? What's something that you really love? Do you love old cars? Do you love?
I love fantasy football.
What do you love that's physical out there in the world?
Okay. Good question. So physical out there in the world. Well, I definitely slow down a lot. I mean, we played golf yesterday, so I'm starting to like golf again. But hold on, me physically out there in the world. What do I love? That's a great question. So yeah, I'm not used to getting the questions. I mean, I'd like things that are surrounding community. Like I love cigars with friends. I love like having good wine with good people. Like I like this. And I know it's like I'm hedging a little bit, but like community oriented type stuff. And I always say like cigars are not about the cigars, but it's the time spent together, you know?
Sure.
Or learning more about wines or spending a little bit more time around people. I'm people centric. So I guess maybe just being around people that I care about and spending some meaningful time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So you have family and friends that you can still get around right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So when you're with these people, would you say that you're having one of these experiences that you really love? Do you have a recent one?
I'm trying to think. I have a good story about my sister.
Okay.
If it's okay.
Yeah.
We have a small UPS store in Summit, New Jersey. She runs it. And we had it for 13 years. And I want to say about 8 years ago or 10 years ago or something crazy, a long time ago, there was like a super rude customer to the point of she felt physically threatened. She I think called the cops. She just felt physically threatened for herself and for employees. And the guy took it the wrong way, called corporate, made a complaint. And then the franchise, we own the franchise, but they own the, you know, franchise work. They own the rights and that kind of stuff. So we kind of work for them, but we don't, right? And And she kind of got chapped by corporate because the customer's always right. And like, she got like physically scared of him. She called me, she was crying, she was upset. And you gotta remember, this is my sister. Like, you know, it's not like, hey, like running a business together, you kind of screwed my manager. Well, you're screwing with my business, and it was one thing, but now you're screwing my sister, which is a whole nother level. So I didn't take too kindly to it. And I was super pissed about it too. Fast forward, like last week, the guy called her, and she got scared, like, because the guy like threatened her. And she got scared, and he just called to apologize. She didn't go into detail. She put on Instagram, on Facebook, and I talked a little bit afterwards. And I didn't fully get downloaded it, but the gist of it was he called her and apologized. And I guess he was in a tough place, going through some hard stuff, and he totally took out on her. And like, she just wrote like on Facebook, and she told me like on the phone was, I kind of put some faith back in humanity. And that was something enlightening to me. And I felt like, you know, have I done that to somebody, you know, where I was that guy? Now, I'm not going to lie. I've gone through a lot of different transitions in my life, and now I kind of have like a new life. I have a beautiful new daughter. I have a girlfriend who I'm going to get married to, you know, soon too. I have my two beautiful children already. So three kids together, which I love. And I kind of had to like start over a new life, and new theory, right? A new life. And you know, and I wrestle with, like, I was pretty shitty at some people, right? Inadvertently, or just with the cards I was dealt and whatever, right? Nothing justified, just is what it is type thing. And I kind of wrestle with, do you go back and apologize? Do you leave it alone? So I kind of, with some people, I kind of went back to, which I felt like, you know, that I wanted them in my life now. And the people that maybe were periodical, where like they were meant to be in that life at that time, and then they did some shitty stuff too, I didn't reach out to. I didn't go on an apology tour. That I didn't do, nor did I needed to. But I kind of said, do I want to be friends with that person now? And, you know, this is about vicinity. You're friends with high school friends because, like, you know, they're around you. And like, you ever go to like the bank? I know it's different now, but in the past, you ever go to the bank and they're like, hey, Lee, you're still with so-and-so? You're like, I broke up with them like 10 years ago. Like, oh, so when you having kids? Well, I got 3 of them. Like, you know, not knocking them. They're meaningful. They're meaning well, but they're just totally out of tune to where you are and out of sync. And like, so like I kind of said to myself, I said, who can I be friends with now in my new life, and where I want to go, but where I want to be. And then number 2, who's going to make me a better person? Because that's what I'm always striving to be. And your book is going to help us get there. So let's conclude with some thoughts.
Well, I want to piggyback off of what you just said there.
Please.
So because you were asking, like, give us a tip. What can we do now, right? To get attention off of that.
Please.
So you talk about these people that in your life, and when you made these things right with them, right? Yeah. Or your sister, and I'm sure the time that you were talking with her, making sure she's okay. And even afterwards, that conversation, in those conversations. Yeah. How present were you then, Tom? You were totally present, right?
Yeah, because it alerted me, you know, it was kind of like,
right.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is about first pulling ourselves into the present moment. Yeah. In the present moment, we can see what is valuable. We can see what is good. Yeah. We can also see what is bad. True. But we've got too much of that going on right now. Yeah. We need to recognize the other side of it.
Agreed.
And this is why I start out, I believe it's chapter 5. It's really early in the book. We just go right into, okay, let's get into this. An athlete who is going to build up their muscles, they got to go out and exercise them. They got to go out and exercise them on a daily basis, right? Correct. So I go over some things showing, like, these people that you're looking at and you're talking about, they're going to help you grow and be better. Well, then that means you admire something about them, right? Yeah. Yeah, there's some qualities about them you admire, right? Correct, okay, correct. Good. Then you're a superhero already, but obviously because you have their most valuable muscle, which is their admiration muscle. Mm. They admire humanity. Yeah. They admire what is possible out of humanity. They admire what humanity pushes through. They look to what can be better, right? But they admire the potential of that and where it can go. Admiration is this really, really powerful tool in our lives, and we can use it. And I explain how in that first exercise, you can use it to pull yourself into the present moment. No conversation, no talking to someone happens without being in the present moment.
Exactly.
So that's the first thing, right? We got to get that in first. And we're not going to do it by listening to all the pounding that's happening, telling us what's wrong with the world. Correct. That's easy. It doesn't take a superhero to find what's wrong with the world, right? Correct. It takes a superhero to find what's right with the world, but there's a whole lot that's right.
You're right. If you were to print one book and the manuscript after that got ripped up, just there's no other copies, no nothing, just one book, would you send it to your best friend or would you send it to your worst enemy? And why?
Oh my God, what a great question. Wow. I always want to talk to so many people. I'm like, both. I want to send it to both of them. How can I pick? Yeah. I would say the worst enemy.
Why?
Well, I think that there are two universal solvents. One is admiration and the other is communication. Yeah. You put those together, you can solve anything. Any riff can be figured out, and you can find commonality and common ground. If I've got a worst enemy, what does that mean? It means we don't have common ground. Yeah. It means I've got one view, they've got another view, right? Otherwise, I mean, you and I are talking about similar views here. We got no problem talking to each other. My best friend has already got similar views to me. That's why they're my best friend.
Correct,
right?
correct.
We agree on so much already.
Yeah.
We need more agreement on this in this world. So I would want to send it to the enemy so that they would have an opportunity to receive communication from me that hopefully would help them to understand life a little bit better. Help them to see what, especially with this book, I'm of course looking at this book, what I actually think about them.
Yeah.
What I think is right about them. And I think this would lead toward more commonality, which is, this is how we start solving things on this planet. Not by, we've got so many lines drawn between us. You know, Dr. Wayne Dyer was one of my favorite philosophers. And he was famous for saying, on a round planet, it doesn't make sense to pick sides.
True. So Lee, I'm going to give a link to the book in the body of the YouTube as well as the iTunes and wherever you're listening link. The book is How to Talk to Someone and Not Die, a handbook for superheroes. I'll put the Amazon link, probably the easiest and best bet. But how can we find you, Lee?
The website is Lee Burns Games. Lee Burns Games.
And I'll put that there as well. And we're going to have a little fun here at New Theory. I'm going to put a link or put my email in the body. And then the first 10 people to email me and just email me free book, we'll get a free copy of your book. So I'm awesome, excited. And that's on X Factor and a New Theory. And it's just one of those things that I think it's the right thing to do. I'm excited. I'm looking to get better. This book will help me get better. And if we send it to 10 people, and if they get 10 people get a little bit better, then we reach our goal. So Lee, listen, thank you for being on the podcast. His book launched today. He's a busy dude. You didn't need to come on. This was voluntary. I swear I didn't hold the gun to his head. But Lee, thank you for being on the podcast. And congratulations on becoming a bestseller, my friend.
Thanks, brother. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.